Welcome back to the Munn Avenue Muse podcast brought to you by Munn, M-U-N-N, avenuepress.com. And today we have a very special guest, all the way from Ghana in Africa. Elizabeth Patterson is the founder and executive director of the Girls Education Initiative of Ghana, supporting girls, including those with special needs, access to education. She is a graduate of NYU Wagner School of Public Service. She is a recognized leader, TEDx speaker, and acumen follower. But more than that, she has an amazing personal story to tell of resilience and triumph under great and challenging circumstances. And we were honored and delighted to recently help her publish her new book, My Life After Death, brought to you by the Munn Avenue Press. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Thank you very
And, to start off, why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory and tell us about the thing that changed your life?
Okay. So, so you mentioned that I'm calling in from Ghana. I am Ghanaian by birth. I was born in Ghana like a long time ago, not that long ago, but some few years ago. And then I was raised in the US for 22 years of my life. When I was 10 years old, my parents took me and my sister out of Ghana and brought us to the US. But unfortunately, when I was 18, in my third year, about to enter my final year of high school, I was involved in this life altering, devastating car accident where it was myself and I believe a few other kids from my school going somewhere. We don't know where. I don't remember anything about the accident, but going somewhere, teacher was driving, and then by some freak accident or whatever it was, the van, I've been told, flipped over, and then everybody somehow made it out, but I was stuck in the van. And then my classmates mentioned that they got a few people in the area. I went to school in Pennsylvania, but my family lived in New York, so they were able to get some few people to come and help to lift up the the minivan off of my lower body. So my from the legs down, I was stuck in the van, and then my waist up got thrown out of the van, and then I fell on top of my head, my skull, um, fracturing pieces of my skull, and then I guess the rest, as they say, is history. Got rushed to the hospital, and then they had to do put an oxygen on me, do a drain to my head. So I forget the actual term, but my brain swelled up.
You had a subdural
Yeah,
hematoma.
yeah, yes, that's the correct word. But it wasn't coming to me right away. So they had to take a piece of my skull and allow the brain to swell, and that I believe is what saved my life. That and God and the powers that be saved my life. So then from then on, the first hospital I think stabilized me and then got moved to Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania, CHOP, where all the processes and everything happened, where I died, right? So I like to say this. It's not funny, but I say it like on April 4th, 2003, I died. And then 6 weeks later, I guess I came back to life. And I got to face and deal with all the residual things of having a traumatic brain injury, a stroke. As you can see, am talking a lot with my right hand because I have a stroke on the left side of my body. For 22 years, I haven't been able to use my left hand, and I can walk, but I walk with um, circumduction, meaning my gait emanates or stems from my hip rather normal gait that a person would go from hip to knee to and that whole fluid motion. So it's been a lot. I've gone through at least I think 7 or 8 surgeries in my head. Um, a lot of therapies for me to be able to sit here and be with you and have the privilege to have my life story published by Mon Avenue Press. Yeah, thank you.
Well, and in a way, I mean, that was the beginning for you of overcoming the difficulties of having a disability and in a most inspiring way, not only overcoming that, but thriving um, and succeeding in many ways. Tell us about I'm sure you thought at that point in time that you would never have a family, and your book opens with uh, a description of giving birth to your first child. Share a little bit about that.
So I am one of 2 kids from my parents, and I'm the oldest. And so it feels like there's always some kind of weight or expectation on me to be the first, to do everything ahead to in order to kind of set an example for my sister. And having my son, having kids in general after the accident, it's something that no one really thought was a possibility for me. And I like to joke that like I had a brain injury. My sex organs were not affected, if anything. But like I think I that's a line in the book. But like people really, really thought, how would this be possible? How is she going to be able to live a quote unquote normal life, right? But thankfully, I'm someone who lives my life as if nothing has happened to me. I don't see maybe in as much as I am changed and I am disabled or I am like a different person from the person that I was born as. I don't see myself as the person who I have become as a result of this car accident. So I I am was in a relationship with someone committed and we decided to have kids. And I was like, okay, let's see. No matter what happens, let's see what happens, right? So I was in the US for my routine checkup for my doctors, and then I went to my OBGYN or my gyno and did a test, and he was like, she says to me, I think you're pregnant. And I was like, okay, I mean, I'm not surprised. I I wasn't too surprised, but it just didn't feel like something that I was expecting then. And upon hearing that, I quickly called my mom. And as soon as my mom heard, she was like, you're not coming to Ghana. You're going to stay in the US so you could get the best care. And for me, I think it came from a place of love, but it was really, really protective because of the person that I've become, a person with a disability. Because if you're in Ghana with as a person with a disability, I honestly, me being here, growing up here, and even living here as an adult, I have never seen a person with a disability carrying a child being pregnant. So visually, like I it's really profound. I've never seen that in my 40 years of life. I've never seen a person in a wheel. I've seen a wheelchair bound woman breastfeeding or carrying her baby, but I've never seen a person with a disability pregnant. And so I think all the stigmas, all the the emotions around maybe people seeing me and questioning how I got to be with child became a lot for my mom and my family. So I stayed in the US where there's not as much stigmatization of a person with a disability. And 9 months later, I pushed my son out against all odds. The doctor thought I was gonna. She prepared me for a C-section, all these things, As they were putting the needle in for an epidural, my son came out. Like within 15 minutes, I delivered him. And
He probably didn't like needles.
he still doesn't. It's very poignant that you say that. Whenever he has to go to the hospital, he shies away from needles. If he sees the doctor with a needle, it's something that he runs away from. So it was a miracle against like people's expectations, against my the accident and what all the perceptions and everything that my life should have been. I should have been in a coma. I should have been comatose or a vegetable. That's what the doctors told my parents. Like, if she makes it, she'll be a vegetable. But I
Wow.
don't think this is not a vegetable talking right now.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
how old is your son now?
my son will be 7 in November, so he's 6, and I
Oh,
also have a daughter who's 5 or 4, about to be 5.
so you
So
decided to go for number two as well.
yeah, yes, yes. I mean, I had a son. I knew I'm a pretty good mom with my son, but I also wanted to see what my daughter would be like. And fortunately, she is a lot like me. She's very I mean, people say I'm stubborn. She's very outspoken, opinionated, and headstrong. So she's my replica. Like, she's my replica. So my it wasn't enough for me to have one. I decided to have another. Yeah.
Well, that's quite wonderful. And well, not only did you manage to have a family, but then you decided to get involved with this not-for-profit to educate young girls in Ghana. How did that happen, and what have you accomplished?
hmm So I mean, people didn't think that I could even finish high school, finish undergrad, let alone get a master's. But when I was in between my first degree or my bachelor's and my master's, I came to Ghana to do some service work where I volunteered in a school in my home region of the Ashanti region for about 7 months to a year. I was a first grade teacher and I fell in love with being in the classroom up to a point. Like, I don't enjoy having to yell at kids. I don't enjoy having to discipline them in any way. So I was in the classroom. I saw the transformation that I could potentially make. And I remember there was this one young girl who was slightly older than her classmates, but she was in first grade. I think she was 9 or 10, and she should have been in fifth grade, but she was in first grade. And then I was engaging with her, engaging with the school heads, and trying to figure out why this is so. And turns out her family thought she was possessed by the devil. She wasn't doing well in school, and they weren't trying to figure out why she wasn't performing. And so their assumption was she was being possessed by the devil. And so I started to do one-on-one tutoring with her, and she picked up. She picked up from the 7 months or so that I was here. I saw a big shift in her. She was reading simple sentences by the time I left. And when I returned to the US to finish my degree, with the insight that I really don't think I want to be in the classroom, I did political science and I did some research on the No Child Left Behind policy. And then I traveled to Ghana to do some more research on how inclusive education pretty much is how people with disabilities or special needs are being included in the education system. I did that comparative study and I pegged it against kids in South Africa who are in special schools, right? Even the name that they give to it, it's a special school. It's special. And to me, I'm putting air quotes for a reason. To me, like, I'm not special. I have just been dealt with a different set of circumstances in my life. And nobody with a learning difference or a disability is really special. I mean, we have different needs, but to sideline us and say that you're in a special school, you have special needs, is profound. So these lived experiences of my education and traveling all around to study education systems in other parts of the world led me to found the Girls Education Initiative of Ghana, or GIG, basically to ensure that girls like myself, and it sounds like I'm being selfish, but if a girl like me is in Ghana, like a 10-year-old like me is is a girl number one, and it's a girl with a disability. I would like to see her also sitting here in the next 10 years with you, talking about a book that she's written, right? So I started my organization to ensure that no girl would be left behind and no girl shouldn't have access to quality education with the conditions and all the accommodations that she would need. So we've been operating for a little bit over 10 years. This is our 11th year. And we've supported approximately 70 girls to transition from middle school to university, graduating with full financial scholarship, financial aid, and then mentoring programming alongside with some career advancement activities and programs that supports them. So it's a three-pronged approach that we take at GIG, and it's really profound because I feel like my foundation was strong enough that my parents believed that we needed that quality education. So they invested enough, and I had mentors who guided me along the way. So I want these girls to also have mentors and examples of what they could aspire to be. And I worked from an early age in life. So I want girls and girls with disabilities in Ghana to be able to appreciate what it means to generate income for themselves and be self-sufficient. Like you don't need to rely on the system or the government or your family so much. And as you know, I am independent of, like, as much as possible, I'm independent of my family. I have my own family, which we just mentioned. I have two kids, and I live pretty much an independent life outside of any family support. So I don't see why a girl in Ghana with my circumstances cannot have the same thing.
Oh, that's quite an amazing story, and it leads to my question, which may be kind of obvious, but tell us about why you decided to write a book about your story.
I think my story is unique enough, but it's not unique, right? Like I'm sure there's many other people with disabilities who have overcome and done something with themselves. But it's unique enough that culturally to my home country of Ghana, there's not much representation of people like myself and my life after death, right? I died. I really did die. Like literally, I died. I was in a coma for 6 weeks, and then I came back. And I tend not to like applaud myself, but to see all that I've been able to achieve, I like to say, in spite of or because of the accident, I've done well, Charlie. I think I've done pretty well, and so I want this to be a platform, an avenue where people read it and know, even if you're able-bodied or whatever be the case, you know that no matter what your circumstances are, you can achieve something and become something.
Yeah, and the book we mentioned before is called My Life After Death by Elizabeth Patterson, and it is available on Amazon.com. And maybe by the time this is broadcasted, it'll be on BarnesandNoble.com and at various websites around the world, and will be available in 100 countries for people to read and be inspired. I'm inspired by your story, Elizabeth. I have been from the beginning, but it's wonderful to hear you tell it. And another sort of wonderful thing about you is that with all of this going on, you sort of maintain your sense of humor. You're able to laugh and smile. You have a great smile. I'm sorry for those of you who
Thank
are
you.
listening to the podcast and not watching, but Elizabeth has a great smile.
Thank you.
So if you go on to YouTube or Substack, where our podcast is, besides Apple and Spotify, you can see Elizabeth's great smile
Thank you
and,
so much.
and a picture of the book too.
It's on
So
the cover of the book. Yeah.
yeah, it's on the cover of the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
And you're very expressive with your one
Mm-hmm,
hand, by the way. I mean,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
it's a little tricky to do air quotes with one hand, but you seem to be able to pull it off pretty well.
I don't know. I think maybe I've mastered it over like the last 22 years. But um, I remember when I was in grad school, one of my friends, like talking about smiles and being happy, right? One of my friends, one day after our class, said to me, why are you always smiling?" And I, I, I'm trying to remember the words that I said to her. I was like, why shouldn't I? Like in grad school, we mentioned that I graduated from NYU, but the thing that most people don't know is that I was I gained admission to 7 out of the 8 schools that I applied to, and the only school that I was really really hoping and wishing to get into was NYU, and then NYU waitlisted me, and me being the stubborn person, I talked about it earlier, being stubborn in my first semester, I wanted to do full course load. Like I did a whole full course, like any normal students. There go the air quotes again, like any normal students, right? Because I was encouraged by the fact that when I was finishing undergrad, I at that time I was taking 6 classes, and I was still able to graduate with honors. So I thought I was invincible. I could do anything. But got into NYU first semester. I took full course load, and Charlie, I failed. Like I failed 3 out of my 4 classes that I was taking at the time. And so to bring it back to, and they asked me to go and find another school, or like think about maybe staying at home for a little bit. Maybe the circumstances were too like extenuating for me and my situation. And so when my friend asked me why am I always smiling, I think that just reminded me, because I almost got kicked out of the school. And so what other option do I have? I'm getting out of class. Why shouldn't I be smiling? Like I almost got kicked out. So then why why should I not be happy and enjoying that I made it out of one class, right? So
Yeah. So what
yeah,
happened? Did you turn it around at NYU, or what happened?
um, I after the first semester, and they had a meeting with me, I told them, give me another chance, give me another chance. And so I decided to go on a part-time schedule where over the summers, I went to school year round. Over the summers, I made up the classes that I failed. And then by the time the fall semester started, I was on track. So, and that's how they kept me. Like, I pled with them, and I am, I think my family, people who are very close to me, know that I can be sensitive. But I I can't believe that I sat in front of the dean and I cried and begged him to keep me there. And I was like, it's not that I didn't have other options, but I said, I really, really want to be here. So you give me till after the summer. I'll make everything up. I'll do it. So
And you did.
yeah, and I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's just awesome. So, Elizabeth, what's next for you, or what are you working on now, or what do you foresee in the future?
So what's next for me? I mean, get this book out there. Let the world know that the book is out there. And I've started a podcast called Ability Talks, where I've been interviewing other people with special needs or disabilities here in
Good.
Ghana, and hopefully it will become global. where we can see, I like to say, so we can see the ability in disability, because there's always something that we can achieve or we can do. So aside ability talks, right? I hope your viewers would also subscribe to all the platforms. It's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram. I like to share the wealth of knowledge that I've acquired through my education with other nonprofits. So for about 3, 4 years now, I've been consulting for other nonprofits, individuals, and startups to helping them hone their plans so they could actually do something with the ideas that they have. So I have a consultancy called eampconsults.com. So EAMP Independent Consults, yeah. So I will continue to do that. I will push the book out, and hopefully myself and Mun Avenue Press can get together in a couple of years to publish another book. And I just wanted to say this. You and your team have been very, very, I don't want to use the word kind, but you've been very encouraging throughout this whole process. And it's been good. It's been very collaborative. And it didn't feel like it was work. We met each other where we needed to. And so I'm very thankful to have Mun Avenue Press to have worked with me on this book.
No, it's been
Yeah.
a real pleasure and an honor. And one of our goals this year, I meet with my team at the beginning of the year to sort of do our strategic plan. And one of our goals, which you're helping us achieve, is to publish books that are meaningful and might change people's lives. I mean, it's always been a requirement that we publish books that we can be proud of, which we are very proud of My Life After Death. But also, I think yours is a book that can change lives, that can inspire people to do more, to go beyond what they perceive as their boundaries, whether it be disability or lack of education or financial. We all have constraints of some kind.
Definitely, definitely.
Um, and you have shown that, by force of will, which is one of your superpowers, um, and intelligence and care. And you used the word kindness before, which I think is deeply embedded in you and projects through your story and your good work. Um, yeah. So Elizabeth's book, My Life After Death, is pretty new. It just came out last week, and I hope you'll pick up a copy. It's a pretty quick read, and you had a forward from somebody who's pretty well known to that book,
Yeah.
Lucy Quist.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and just tell her about that connection and who she is.
So Lucy Quiz is a tech genius. She's a businesswoman. I would say she's a genius. Lucy, I've admired you from afar, but thankfully I've been able to kind of get within your circle over the years that I've been here in Ghana. So Lucy, she was the MD of Morgan Stanley. Lucy was the first female CEO of a tech company here in Ghana, and she was the CEO of Airtel I think back in 2009 or so. And that's when we met. We were both invited to a workshop, a mentoring workshop for young people here in Ghana. And Lucy was one, I think she was a keynote. And I was able to take my students to the workshop, which was sponsored by Microsoft. It was a Microsoft Digi Girls summit or workshop. And me being a fangirl, standing there in awe of Lucy, right? So that's when we first connected. And then thankfully, in 2015, I was privileged enough to be the Bliss School brand ambassador of Ghana. And then I believe Lucy transitioned after me, like 2 years after me. So the our circle of familiarity has become very close. And like I said, I'm very thankful to her for giving me that space and writing the forward for me. And it's a very beautiful forward. Yeah,
It,
thank you.
it, it really is. And there's a little blurb on the back of your book that she wrote that I'd like to read. And this is from Lucy Quist. Elizabeth is one of the most remarkable women I have ever met. May her story ignite in you the same fire to live fully, fiercely, and without limits. And I think that really says it.
Mm-hmm. In a nutshell, yeah.
I
Yes,
think
in
that
a
really
nutshell,
says
yeah.
it about you. And I'll mention besides checking out My Life After Death on Amazon and elsewhere, if you would like to support Elizabeth's nonprofit efforts, you can Google Girls Education Initiative of Ghana
Definitely.
and make a donation.
Yes, yes. Thank you
That
for that. Make a donation.
I think those young girls would appreciate it, and empowering women around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think is a noble mission that needs a lot of energy and a lot of help.
Mm-hmm.
And you're leading the charge, Elizabeth. So congratulations on your new
Thank you
book,
so much, Charlie.
on
Thank
your
you.
education foundation, and all the wonderful things you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you very much, Charlie.
So this has been the Mun Avenue Muse podcast, which is available on Substack, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And all you have to do is say, if you have an iPhone, you can just say, Siri, play the most recent episode of the Mun Avenue Muse podcast. And guess what? Next week, Elizabeth's episode will come up. And if you have an Amazon Echo device, you can say, and I'm going to say it and she'll probably answer, but Alexa, play the most recent episode of the Mun Avenue Muse podcast, and she'll play it. Um, and
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Usually she'll play it
Uh-huh.
because I've tested it out many times. So, yes, thank you again, Elizabeth, for joining us. This has been a lot of fun and so inspiring and entertaining.
Thank you very much, Charlie. And thank you for advocating for people to support my organization. I want to say that proceeds from the book are going to support more students to get access to quality and inclusive education. So if you pick up the book and if you're inspired by my story, know that your dollars and cents are going directly to support girls here in Ghana so they could get quality education.
Well, terrific.
Thank you very much.